Hi everyone, today's video is something a little bit different from me. It's a collaboration between me and Toni Darroch from Stamps by Me. She had the brilliant idea for us to do a little bit of a collaboration. So we had to think about what would be the best thing to do, and we came up with the idea of both using the same sketch and the same colour palette and then seeing what we both come up with from the same starting point. So hopefully we'll both come up with something nice, and they'll both be quite different, I hope, because obviously I work for Sizzix, Toni has her own products, so between us we'll probably come up with different ideas for you. So I'll show you the sketch that we're going to be using. So this is the sketch, and then we've got this colour palette as well. So lots of different ways to use this sketch. Now, when I first started crafting, 20 years ago, sketches were really a big thing then, and I actually used to use sketches a lot, and they seem to have kind of gone out of fashion a little bit, but it's a really useful way if you're stuck for ideas, or if you find that you're making the same kind of layout all the time, which is very easy to get into. If you kind of get a design that you're happy with, it's very easy to kind of revert to that when you're crafting. And I've actually got a folder full of sketches that I've printed off over the years, and if I do find that I'm getting into a bit of a routine with making similar looking cards, I grab that folder, and it's a really good way to sort of jumpstart your mind with thinking of other ideas. Equally with colour palettes, same thing. If you find that we all have our favourites, and if you keep going to the same colours and you find that your projects are kind of looking a bit samey, again, great idea to just browse Pinterest, come up with some colour palettes and try something that's maybe out of your comfort zone. The other thing to mention, if you haven't used a sketch before, it's not set in concrete that you have to follow it exactly. If you see this sketch, I've kind of got a border, and then you've got a panel, a circle. This could be a sentiment strip, could be something else. There are flowers here. It doesn't mean you've got to put flowers on. It's just an illustration of there's the sort of whatever your focal point could be a stamped animal or an image, or so don't feel you've got to follow it really rigidly when you look at sketches. Also, don't feel that you have to follow the proportions. If you want this panel to be larger, you can do that. It's just to give you an inspiration and a loose starting point, really. Equally, you can flip the orientation if you want to. If you prefer doing cards this way, and if you were flipping it, I would possibly move that circle up a little bit. So don't be afraid to play around with it. The sketch is really meant to kickstart your inspiration, not force you into a layout that perhaps you're not happy with. So now you know where we're both starting from. I'll flip my camera and I'll try and make something with this sketch. So I've got my sketch and I've got a card blank, and I think I'm going to go with a craft background for that matte layer. I've got some circle dies. I've grabbed this tub of sentiments that I keep, and now I'm just going to grab things that are in those colours. I don't know what I'm going to use yet, but I've got some oxide ink pads and paints that match that kind of green and blue, and then I think Miss Tattered Rose and Victorian Velvet kind of match those two. And there's a beige there, so I've grabbed some, it's called Peanut Cluster, I think. It's a basil cardstock, so I might use that. I think I'm going to grab some Sizzix cardstocks to try and match as well, because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to add and how I'm going to colour it. So these are botanical Sizzix cardstocks, and the pink I think is quite a good sort of dusky pink, which matches that one there. So I've got those few supplies, and that's going to give me a good starting point. Now I'm fairly confident that I want a craft background, because I do quite often do that actually, and it's one of my favourites. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this down. For everything else, I'm not going to stick anything down until I've kind of decided where I'm going. But at this point, I know I'm going to follow that part of the sketch and have a matte background. The next thing I know I want is a circle, really, and there's also that sort of strip across, so I'm kind of thinking in my head which colours I'm going to use where, and I'm thinking this eucalyptus Sizzix card might be quite nice for a strip. I'm not going to stick this down yet though, because I want to see how it all looks first. And then the circle. I think I'll probably go with this peanut basil card for the circle. So I'm just whizzing that through. And I'm not entirely sure at this point because I don't know what I'm going to add to it. I don't quite know whether I want this size circle or the next size up. So I'm going to die cut both. Because there's that kind of little sentiment strip. Or, well, it could be anything actually. You could just put some ribbon or something. But I'm thinking I'm going to go with a sentiment strip there. So it's working out. Now, by chance, this sentiment strip that was in my pot is actually the same colour. So that could be a nice layout. And then I could add some flowers or something above it. I've grabbed this geofloral frame set so I can just have a look at the sizing. I'm thinking this could be a good layout to have some, just like a sort of spray of foliage above. And then I could colour these in all of those colours really. So that could be a good design. The one thing I think though, because I've got really, it's just all a bit flat looking, I've decided I think I might emboss this strip for the background. So I've grabbed this folder, is called Adorn Tile, and I'm going to run that through. The other thing I could have done with this strip is used a patterned piece of paper, but with the florals I think that might be a bit too busy, so I'm going to add this in the background. Before I do, I'm going to add a bit of gold wax to it though, so I've got some luster wax in gold. I'm not going to cover it, I'm just going to put a little bit here and there, just to highlight that design a little bit. It's quite subtle, and of course by the time I've put the circle on top you'll only see little bits of this, but I think adding a bit of gold just lifts it up a little bit. So I'm going to stick that down onto the front. I'm quite confident that I've kind of got the layout in my head now. And I really like this light blue against craft card. It's kind of one of my favourite colour combinations really. So that's going to go there. And then I think it's going to be the larger circle because that's going to give me room for the sentiment strip. And then some flowers on top. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that layout. I think I'm going to put the circle on with some foam tape to raise that up a little bit. And you'll notice when you look at the sketch and then look at my sentiment strip, mine goes further across. And this is just another example really that you really don't have to follow it absolutely exactly. Use what you've got and wear it, you know, just use this as inspiration. Now because this is going to hang off one end, I'm putting a bit of foam tape on that side but then just a bit of glue on the other because then it will make it even. And then I've got quite a good space left on that circle for the flowers, so I'm just going to move my mat out the way a little bit so you can see, because I've got a white craft mat underneath this that I can use for my painting. I've die cut all of those flowers from watercolour card, and I'm going to colour them with those distress inks that I've already, they're oxide inks actually, sorry, that I've already picked out in the colours that match. So I'll do the florals first, and I'm going to do those in the sort of pink and purple that match the colours. So I'll just give those quick spritz of water and give them all a watercolour. I think when you're following card sketches, you know, think about what supplies you've got. The obvious thing for me to grab was my oxide inks because it's actually one of the few distressed product lines where I've got all the colours. I bought the oxides kind of as they came out in groups, so it's the only distressed product where I have actually got all of the colours. I haven't got all of the colours of the normal distress inks or the sprays, or, you know, I'm gradually building up my collection. but the oxides, I do actually have all of them, so I do quite often reach for those because I know I've got, you know, every colour that I'm going to need. So I'm just using my heat tool to give these a quick dry. And then if I want to, I can go back and darken the colour, give them another layer. And I haven't really quite decided how I'm going to lay these out. I'll probably put 3, because 3 always works nicely. But I'll probably layer these up. Make sure if you're doing this, that you flip them over and dry the back, because quite often where they've been on the mat that's non-stick, you'll think they're dry and then they're wet underneath, and then as you're sort of playing around placing them on your card, you end up getting ink on your card. Don't ask me how I know that. So that's the flowers all done. I'll pop those on my mat, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with all that foliage. And I've got the bundled sage and speckled egg oxide inks ready for that, because that's going to go with the green and blue. So exactly the same, I'm just going to add some of each colour to my mat, give them a spritz with water, and then I'm going to colour these in. Now, I'll jump ahead now because obviously this is exactly the same as I did for the flowers, and it's a bit repetitive to watch me do this. But I'm basically going to do some of them in green, some in the blue, and a couple of them I might add a little bit of both on, but we'll jump ahead. So I've got all my elements, and now I can work out how to put them all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is give them a bit of shape actually. I'm just grabbing my paper sculpting kit. It's got this little mat and then a ball tool, just so I can give those flowers a bit of dimension. And then I can work out how I'm going to arrange them. So I think I'm going to stack them up a little bit. Just see how they fit really. I can always go back and die cut more if I need more of any of the layers or more foliage. But I did kind of die cut one of everything in terms of the foliage, and I've cut a few layers of the flowers, so I should have just about the right amount. So for the flowers, I'm going to pop those on with a foam pad, and that's going to give me the ability to then tuck the foliage underneath them. And it means I haven't got to think about where I'm going to put the foliage before I stick those down. If I were gluing them down, I'd have to put the foliage in first and add those on top, and that's kind of a little bit more difficult to do. Now, I quite like that large one there because that's quite a big gap there. That's the biggest gap, so it makes sense to tuck that one in there. And I'll just make sure it's not covering over the sentiment. And then this is the next largest one. The other foliage bits are smaller, so they're a bit easier to kind of tuck in wherever. And you'll notice I'm only gluing them towards the bottom so that they're not flat to the card. They've got a bit of dimension to them. And then this little one with the berries. I'm just trying to decide where that will go nice, because this one I might add some glossy accents to give it a bit more of a realistic look. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So now I can layer up the flowers. And I don't think I'll layer up all of them. So that one I've done 3 layers. And then that smaller one at the back. I've just got room to tuck that in. And by giving them a bit of shape, they really have got quite a good dimension to them. And I just need to move those leaves a little bit. They were covering the sentiment a bit too much. So I'm really happy with that. And as I said, I'm going to grab some, not glossy accents, Nouveau drops. These are, I think it's called enamel white, the white. And I'm just going to add some little berries on there. I've gone with white just so that it doesn't take away from the flowers really, and it's quite subtle. So yeah, there's my finished card, and there's the colour palette and the sketch to compare it to. I've taken a few photos of the finished card. Now don't forget, this is a joint collaboration between me and Toni Darroch. So at the end here I'm going to give you links to Toni's video so you can see what she's done with this sketch. You can also see on this sketch here there are links to my blog and Toni's website, so check those out. I know Toni posts lots of videos and inspiration, so it's definitely worth checking out her both of her websites. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments if it's something you want to see more of, because I've really enjoyed doing this and I would quite like to do more if it's something you want to see. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to go and check Toni's video out now as well, and I will see you soon.